Hello guys, and welcome back to Mel's Life, where we dive into everything life has to offer and try to solve some of its problems. Okay, so you guys can probably hear I'm a little bit sick, but I am on the way to recovery, so hopefully I'll be better soon. But I did need to sit down and make this video so I can stay on some sort of a schedule. Okay, so you guys know this is part 4 in our series, and we are finally starting to look at the links between overthinking and introversion. So in our first 2 videos in this series, we took an in-depth look at what introversion and extroversion actually is, and in the previous video that we did, we looked at overthinking, sort of a broad definition of what overthinking is, as well as what causes overthinking and how it can become a vicious cycle of misery, basically. So, since we now have some background information on both of these topics, we can find the links between the two. Speaking of links, there is one in the description if you want to go read more about exactly how introversion and overthinking start linking together. Okay, so if you recall, in one of our introversion videos, we spoke about how introverts have higher electrical activity in their brain than extroverts. That was whether they were at rest, so just relaxing, or whether they were actually busy doing something. Um, we actually also discussed different methods of thinking between introverts and extroverts. That's why I said it wasn't only that we covered introversion, we also spoke a little bit about extroversion to compare the two. And we saw 2 different methods of thinking in those videos. We saw the extroverted way of thinking, which is kind of verbally, talking through your thoughts, getting your thoughts out of your head, organizing your thoughts verbally. And I mentioned this because I think that method is really good in getting the thoughts out of your head, expressing them verbally, getting them out of the space and actually into the world, and kind of being able to remove any residual noise. So, thoughts that your brain may just come up with that actually isn't helpful or productive. Where introverts, obviously, opposite, they are a lot more inwardly focused. They organize thoughts in their own heads before they even express them. They consider all the information, they think about everything, and then they express a thought. That is obviously if they even get to express a thought. Once again, something we discussed in the one of the first 2 videos speaking about introversion. So we know that introverts, obviously everything is inward, so they actually thrive on internal stimulation. So in the earlier videos, we spoke about the increased blood flow as well, because we saw that introversion and extroversion is a lot more than personality trait. It's actually how our brains work, how it's wired. We saw in one of those first videos not only about the increased electrical activity, but also about differing blood flow. So we saw that introverts have an increased blood flow to the frontal cortex, which is which is linked to a lot of inwardly focused activities, things where you need to plan, and also it is increased blood flow to Broca's area, which is obviously responsible for speech. But as you recall, we mentioned that speech isn't always verbal speech. It's that little thing we do with our inner conversations, having conversations in our heads, which I believe not only introverts do, but I do think it's a lot more of an introverted quality. And I don't know about you, but these inner conversations in our head sound a little like overthinking, if you know what I mean. It starts like it's at least the beginning of what overthinking could be. Um, so with introverts, before verbally expressing a thought or an idea, they need to plan out every single thing. They need to consider all the information. They need to order their thoughts. It's like we started this video with verbally ordering or organizing and internally organizing. Before expressing that thought, they need to organize everything in their own head But the problem with that is that it's not verbal. It is inside their head. Everything takes place inside their heads. They're organizing it inside their heads. The thoughts sometimes get stuck in their heads. Um, and that also leads to another form of inaction that we saw kind of in the overthinking video. Overthinking leads to inaction. So not only is the thoughts stuck in their head, they are stuck because they cannot take action, because that thought is just stuck there. It's just building. There's just more thoughts piling on top because it's not being expressed, it's not being explored. It's actually just getting stuck in their heads, and more thoughts that don't actually matter are just piling on top of it. And that is where overthinking begins. That is how overthinking starts. And I think that is why um, talking is a very good idea. Okay, let's just hear me out. Using the extroverted method of talking through your thoughts, I think would benefit introverts a lot, because it will get the thoughts out of your head. Not only that, if you talk through your thoughts with someone, they may be able to remove the background noise. So you can verbally express your thoughts, and this person will be like, but that doesn't really matter. So get rid of that, and you can get a more condensed list of thoughts that actually matter. And someone else may actually be able to give you some insight that could lead you to a solution sooner. So if introverts were able to adapt or adopt that extroverted quality, I believe it would make their lives a lot more simple. But of course, that is not how the brain of an introvert is wired. And even if they were able to somehow change that part of themselves, not all introverts always have someone to talk to, because obviously it's a lot harder to make friends when you are considered shy, but it's actually you're just wanting to complete a thought before expressing it. And also, extroverts usually, I say usually because obviously there are some exceptions, extroverts usually can just go and approach people and talk to just about anyone. So that is not something an introvert obviously easily can do, which means even if they could get that extroverted quality of talking through their thoughts, there is not always someone to listen. Okay, so we mentioned quite a lot that introverts are intrinsically focused. I mean, it's kind of in the name. Um, there we mentioned that in terms of problem solving, but there's also another aspect of it, is they do it personally. So it's not just about problem solving in their daily life or at their job, it's about things that have happened to them personally. They will take past events and overanalyze them to the point of every single small detail, because they want to avoid that certain situation or problem in the future. I mean, who of us have not been lying in bed going over every conversation we've had every day or that day, thinking, oh no, I should have said this or I should have said that, and then if that conversation should come up again, at least now I have a backup plan. And that is kind of linking to control. Control is something we discussed at length in the overthinking video, so that is why I'm mentioning it, because control is actually a very big part of this. Because that is what introverts are essentially looking for when they go and take all of these events in their life and overanalyze them to see how they should act in a similar situation in the future, overanalyzing every conversation to see how they should speak in the future. They're looking to control a situation in the future. They're looking to control, to be in control of a conversation in the future. But we know control isn't always possible. It doesn't always just come. Um, and if you think about it, introversion is very deeply linked to control. Extroverts thrive on external stimulation, right? So external stimulation, extrovert, kind of makes sense. But when you think about external stimulation, what do you think about? You think about other people, you think about sounds, visuals, spontaneity, even, not a very controlled set of circumstances. When you think about introverts who thrive on internal stimulation, quiet, in your head, focused, sounds very controlled. So I feel like control is a very deep part of introversion, and in control isn't always possible. Okay, we saw that in the overthinking video. You will not always be in control of everything in your life. That is just not possible. Okay, um, I think that leads us to the deduction that introverts are somewhat, and do not take this as an insult, control freaky, and I'm applying this to myself as well. We need the control. We need to be in charge, not in charge, but in charge of things that could happen in the future by overanalyzing them now and kind of getting into that overthinking cycle. Now, when we don't have that control, we know that stress levels increase. We saw that in the overthinking video. As soon as that control is lost, your stress levels will increase. Stress increases overthinking. Overthinking increases stress. We saw that in our overthinking video, the vicious cycle. Um, Now, another thing that I think would be beneficial for introverts to be able to adopt from extroverts, if it were possible, is spontaneity. Now, I'm not saying introverts are not spontaneous. I feel like maybe sometimes it could happen, but obviously, spontaneity is a lot more of an extroverted quality than it is an introverted quality. And what I mean by that is that there are some problems that are solved by simply taking action. Overthinking or just overanalyzing a problem sometimes just leads to it not getting solved, or the problem just getting bigger, like we saw in our overthinking videos. Sometimes there's just more worries that come with overthinking. Sometimes simply taking action will solve your problem. It will take away the problem. Spontaneity, right? So I feel like if introverts were able to adopt that sort of quality, more problems would be solved and overthinking would be reduced. But of course, we know that isn't really always possible. But that doesn't mean the introvert doesn't know that, right? They could know, like, I'm overthinking this problem, and if I just take action, it will get solved. But it's not really within their nature. So know that now they're overthinking. Like, if I could just be more spontaneous, if I could just take action, I could solve this problem, and they get frustrated. Or they could be thinking, why am I not spontaneous? Why can't I just take action? And they get frustrated. And we know that increase in frustration increases overthinking. And that just makes you more unproductive. Like we said in our overthinking video, I keep referencing back to those because it's really important to watch so that you know kind of where I'm getting my ideas from. It makes you more unproductive. Being more unproductive makes you more frustrated, makes you more unproductive, makes you overthink more. It's that vicious cycle all over again. Now, I will never be one to state that overthinking is a introvert specific problem. I know that there are various people within the overthinking. See, I'm within the introvert extrovert spectrum, wherever they may fall, that struggle with overthinking. So I'm not stating that it's just an introverted problem. I do think, however, due to how introverts' brains are wired, overthinking is more likely to occur in people who lean more towards introversion, okay? Because they cannot get their thoughts out of their heads all of the time, okay? Sometimes we find ways with writing, but that's not always helpful. Introverts think inside their heads. Things stay inside their heads, and they're not always able to express their thoughts. And that is why I'm just making the links between overthinking and introversion, and why it's more likely for an introvert to fall into the overthinking cycle. But that does not exclude extroverts from having the same problems, okay? So now that we come to the end of this video, we have looked at a lot of information about overthinking, about introversion. We've found a couple of links between the two. But now I think the last video, I believe, probably in this series, is going to be looking at what the physical effects of overthinking is. Now, we touched a bit on that in our overthinking video, but I want to, get more into that in the last video, and then also trying to find solutions for overthinking, because it doesn't help to just know. We need to know how to stop this vicious cycle. Okay, it is a vicious cycle, and we do need solutions. We do. So I think we have given ourselves a lot of information. We have a lot of information to use, and now that we have that information, we can start looking not only at the physical effects, but also at how to solve this overthinking problem that we are faced with. And that is the end of today's video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and remember to comment any of your thoughts down below. Maybe how you struggled with overthinking, maybe how you overcame overthinking. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.